All right. Hello. Welcome. Hi, Desiree. How are you doing?
Hello, Claire. I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
Good to see you. I'm super excited about today. Everybody, I'm Claire Laughlin, and we are here because I do a lot of coaching training, and I've had a lot of questions come up in my coaching courses about how to coach toward a DEI mindset. So many people are really rich into their DEI initiatives, which is
Yeah.
diversity, equity, and inclusion. We'll talk about that in a minute. Desiree is an expert in DEI initiatives and how to bring diversity and equity and inclusion and belonging to life in your workplaces. So I'm super excited to be here with you, Desiree. Desiree, introduce
Glad to
yourself
be
for
here.
everybody.
Glad to always be here with you, Claire. We always have a wonderful, wonderful discussion. And my name is Desiree Saddler. I'm CEO of Saddler Consulting Group. We also do a lot of training and development. We do organization development, as well as diversity inclusion training. A lot of leadership training. We do a lot of leadership and executive coaching. So love to talk about this concept because, as you said, Claire, a lot of times people don't realize that there are some wonderful tips that we can share to help them really have that DEI mindset when they're coaching.
Right. Because okay, so let's just dive right in, shall
Yes,
we?
love it.
Okay, so this is how we're going to do it for all of you. We're going to just start talking about really how to coach. Really, our focus is how to coach toward that DEI mindset, right?
Yes.
But we're also going to talk about. I'm going to bring in a few questions
Yeah.
from my coachees, my audience, if that's okay, and
Yeah.
I can throw those at you sometime during our discussion or at the
Okay.
end, and just kind of get your perspective on these different things. So let's jump right in. First and foremost, let's talk about DEI and JEDI and DEIB and the different acronyms that we're going to be throwing around. So share with
Uh,
us, what's the framework for that?
Right. I was just sharing with Claire that last week I just got off of a call, a training, and we all know DEI is diversity, equity, inclusion, right? And we've even heard just D&I, diversity and inclusion. Um, we've even now have a new terminology that I was that I was shared with, and it's called Jedi. No, it is not Star Wars. I thought it was Star Wars, but it's actually justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So you might hear that term as you start to just continue to learn and grow in this area. And so they're always thinking about, like, how do we push the bar, right? Like, how do we push the bar when it comes to this? And so that's probably where the Jedi came from.
Yeah, right, totally. And it's really about creating more equitable structures in our
Yes.
workplaces, right? We want to bring people
Yes.
in that represent all the diversity in our communities. We want to make sure that there's equal access for people. We want to make sure that inside an organization that people feel a real strong sense of inclusion and belonging and psychological safety, and so that they can be themselves and contribute
Yes.
fully, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
feel like this is a big topic. It's on a lot of people's minds, and people want to do it well and do it right. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right. And they
Um,
want to do it with sincerity and
yeah,
genuine and be very genuine, but they don't know how to always do that. Right.
absolutely.
They may have the willingness,
Yeah.
right? They may be motivated to do it, but then how do I do it in a
How
way
do
that
I
is
do it?
received well, and that not only is the recipient receiving it well, but they feel good about what they're actually, you know, sharing, and how they're having these conversations, and how they're coaching their
Absolutely.
employees. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
two-way street.
I feel like one of the key things here is that a lot of this work about diversity and equity and inclusion that has come up is about asking as building higher and higher degrees of self-awareness, but also vulnerability and authenticity, like you're talking about, right? It's
Mm,
like we want to do it, we want to do it well, we want to do it with sincerity,
mhm.
we want to do it with heart, and it's kind of, it can get like, I don't know, I know I can get fearful about it. Like, am I going to say the wrong thing? Am I going to step on people's toes? Am I doing things that I don't even, know that I'm doing? Am I exercising privilege that I'm completely
You
blind
don't
to? So
even realize it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're asking people to be really vulnerable.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that just requires
Scary.
so much trust, right?
Yes. A
Yeah.
huge amount of trust. And it's very scary. I want to start with that because
Yeah.
I think the first step is realizing that this is an area of it's unknown chartered waters for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so it is scary. And when we get scared, what do? We shut down.
Right.
We avoid,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or worse, we go deeper into what makes us comfortable, and that can be very offensive to people,
Right.
right? Because
Right.
so I think the first step is understanding this is fearful, accept it, be aware of it,
Yeah.
understand that it's okay
Yeah.
to be fearful about this, to go in kind of like with the knot in your throat, and it's okay because that's a physiological reaction when
Right.
we're in danger, when we
Right.
seek danger, or when we're in fear that we're going to stick our foot in our mouths or
Right.
make a blunder of things. Well, we shut down,
Yeah.
and so I think a lot of times the first step is to acknowledge the fear
Yeah.
and understand it's natural.
Yeah.
And you
This
might
is
even want to admit it.
right. Like to say, right, to say that in the conversation, like here we are talking about things that this is sort of new territory for me, and I'm going to do
Yeah.
my best, but I might, I might mess it up. I don't want to mess it up, but I hope you'll be, you know, kind and generous with me and let me know if I mess up so I can fix it, or something like that. Do you think is that
It's
reasonable?
very reasonable. It's very reasonable. I think it shows that you're vulnerable,
Yeah.
that you're being authentic, that you're being real, you're
Yeah.
approachable, you're
Yeah.
human, because especially if you're in a position of power, right? And you're an authority figure
Yeah.
towards your team, they're thinking you could do no wrong.
Right.
Right. And I mean, you got to this high level position. So you obviously know, well, no, this is an area I'm not comfortable with. I think
Yeah.
the best leader admits mistakes.
Yeah.
The best leader admits that they're vulnerable, or that they have an area in which to grow in.
Yeah.
I was just doing a course, a sexual harassment prevention course, and it doesn't have anything to do with coaching, but I want to bring this up because this leader, this CEO and president of this company, became very vulnerable during one of our sessions with his whole entire management team.
Okay.
And he said, I am going to make a mistake.
Yeah.
I am going to say something or do something that is very offensive to somebody.
Yeah.
I don't mean it. Please
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
that is not my intent.
Yeah.
That is my naivety
Right.
in this area. And I'm learning and growing each and every day to get better.
Good.
So you have my permission. I
Yeah.
will not retaliate. I will not think less of you. I will not, close the door for promotional opportunities. I will actually think highly of you
Yeah. God,
because you
that's
challenged me,
yeah.
right? You challenged me. So I think, even though that was out of context a little bit, it reminded me of this conversation, that
Yeah.
when you're coaching your employees, be so genuine and authentic and real, that and say the words, I will not retaliate. I will not think less of you. I
Yeah.
will not, matter of fact, I will think highly of you because you took a risk and
Yeah.
you challenged me. And
Right.
if you're challenging me, then I'm getting better. If
Right.
I'm getting better, then I can help you get better.
Right. Right. Right.
So I think it starts with that. It starts with realizing I have an area in which to grow, and I admit it.
Yeah. Well, I think what's wonderful is I imagine these conversations when you're talking about this, Desiree, I'm imagining conversations, coaching conversations, right? Let's just let's just name it. So somebody is feeling psychologically unsafe, right?
Yes.
They're feeling unable to stretch out into their wholeness in the
Mhm.
workplace.
Yes.
They're demonstrating that by withholding their opinion, for example, in a meeting. Okay. They're withholding their opinion. They don't appear fully engaged.
Yeah.
So if I'm the boss and I'm looking across my team and I'm like, what's going on? That person doesn't feel fully engaged here. What's happening? So I want to go in and have a coaching conversation with that person. I want to address it. I want to bring that out into the open and have
Yes.
a real conversation about it so that I can understand what's really happening for the person and that we can address it and that we can bring that person fully into the fold, right? So I go in with good intentions and everything, but I go to have this coaching conversation. My hope is to help them feel, express more engagement and to be more present. But I get into the coaching conversation and and something happens and I'm not getting feedback. The person continues to shut down, like what would you say? What should I do in that situation? Because
Yeah.
I could very well be the source of the problem.
We're going to talk about that a little later.
Yeah.
Yes.
I could
Yes.
very well be the source of the problem, or possibly I'm not the source of the problem, but I haven't created enough of a platform and an invitation for the person to really address it with me. In either case,
The trust isn't there.
all right, I might be the coach, but I have to be every bit as open to possibility as the person I'm coaching, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the
Two-way street.
first, yeah, it's a two-way street. I think the first step is that you said something very important. I realized my employee A across the way from me in this meeting is
Yeah.
shutting down. A
Yeah.
lot of times we don't even realize that.
Right.
So that's the first step.
Or we chalk it up to like, oh, this is just more of the same, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. The second step is, now that I've realized it, you said something important. I follow up. I go to have a conversation. How
Yeah.
many leaders leave that meeting, like you said, and just chalk it up to, oh, this is more of the same, and they go on about their very, very busy days?
Yeah.
You see
Right.
that?
Totally. All
So
the time.
those two steps, I think, are so critical, because those two steps alone opens up that door. You want to
Yeah.
talk about open door policy? That's opening up the door.
Right.
Right. But instead, what happens is we don't have that conversation. We don't follow up.
Right. We ignore it.
We ignore it.
Push
We
it
make
away.
excuses for it. We
Yeah.
say, oh, well, they were just quiet, or they were tired, or this is more the same.
Yeah.
And we don't say anything.
Right.
Right. And
Yeah.
it is your role as a leader.
Yeah.
It is your role as a leader and a responsibility as a leader, if you want to be an effective leader, to, number one, recognize it, and number two, follow up with that conversation, as difficult as it may be.
Right.
So I get into the meeting. I've done those two things. Kudos for you, right? You've done the hard work, because that's, to me, the hardest, because you can't do the other hard work if you don't stop and acknowledge and follow up.
Right.
So now I'm in the room, I'm having this conversation, and like you say, something happens. I go in with this wonderful intent, right, to have this conversation, to peel the layers, right, of the onion, to get to the core of what's really going on, and why are they shutting down? Why haven't they given that, those comments that I know they've been wanting to share in this meeting, yet again, they don't.
Right.
Okay. So why is that? But then something shifts, and something happens, and I'm not getting, like, I love that piece that you talked about. I'm not getting the feedback.
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is, along the way, we have not made it safe for them.
Yeah. Right.
We may have said something, or the way we went in has made them put the walls up.
Right.
And this is hard, because it's hard to know, and everybody's going to be different. You can't use the same cookie cut approach with every marginalized group that you have on your team.
Right.
You've got to mix it up. You've got to read body language.
Yeah.
You've got to pay attention to the body language.
Yeah.
So when you're asking these questions, or when you're bringing up you
Yeah.
know, why, and asking the why,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That you pay attention to how they're receiving it.
Right.
And then you might have to shift a little bit. So I think
Mhm.
one of the things is when you're not getting feedback is first check, is this a good time? Are they
Yeah.
ready to have the conversation?
Right.
They
Yeah.
may not be ready to have the conversation.
Yeah.
Just because you are,
Yeah. Right.
and
Right.
you've taken, good for you, kudos, you've taken the risk, right? And just because you said, I'm not going to dig my feet in, I'm
Right.
going to address this, they may not be ready to have that conversation. So I think the first
Right.
thing is to check and make sure that they're ready.
Right.
You know, and then once you find out if they are ready by asking, I wanted to bring up, a situation in the meeting, and I know you had some really great ideas, and I know you've been wanting to share that with the team, but I noticed you didn't. Is this a good time to talk about this right now?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's important to you and it's important to me as well.
Right.
Do you see
So,
that?
so you like start with that connected shared vision.
Yes, because we both are in this, right?
Yeah.
And
Totally.
and it's like you said, it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
It's not, it's I know this is important to you. I know you have these great ideas, yet here we are again, you're not sharing them. What happened? What occurred?
Yeah.
What can I do? How do I help clear the path
Right. Right.
so that you feel comfortable bringing that up in our next meeting? Because this, I need others to see this
Yeah.
great
Right.
side of you that I
Totally.
know that you have.
I love that.
Yeah.
So,
How
so
do I
what I'm
clear the
hearing
path?
is like okay, so if I'm the coach in that little thing, right? I need to come with a lot of openness and invitation, right? A
Yes.
lot of openness and
Yes.
invitation.
Yes.
If I'm the
Yeah.
coachee in that scenario, I need to come with a lot of courage, right? I need to be able to step into that because I'm really, as you're talking about this, I'm really thinking about that coachee. That coachee's already withdrawing a bit for a reason.
For a reason. Yeah.
So they have to enter that risk zone and be willing to say, okay, I'm putting my eggs in this basket. It looks like this person authentically is asking me what's going on. I need to be able to speak up and speak into this and have some faith that we can work it through together, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So like both parties have to really come to this conversation willing to take some risk, right?
Yes. Yes.
Willing
They
to take some
have to
risk.
take some risk, both of them. And if
Yeah.
they don't, then it's gonna be lopsided again.
Yeah.
Now, I think this is
Right.
the important thing. The reason why I said, how can I as a leader clear the path? Because a lot of times people may not speak up in that meeting
Right.
because they didn't feel it was appropriate.
Right.
Maybe they got a side eye from somebody other leader in the meeting that you are even, you're just clueless about,
Right.
right? Because you're just beelining it for them and
Right.
you're not paying attention to your
Oh,
colleagues.
right. Yes.
You're not paying attention
You
to your
didn't, and you
colleagues.
didn't even register whatever happened, didn't even show up on your radar. Yeah.
Didn't even show up on your radar. So the clear the path, the reason why that's important is because that employee, like you said, can maybe take the risk at that moment and say, well, I was waiting for you to introduce that,
Right.
Claire has something to share with the group. Claire was sharing with me the other day, and I thought it was a great idea. Claire, do you mind sharing?
Right.
I was
Yeah.
waiting for you to introduce me into the conversation, being that I'm in a room with the high levels, right?
Right.
I felt out of place. I didn't
Right.
feel it was my place. And I
Yeah.
was waiting for your lead
Yeah.
or you to clear. That's why you say clear the path. How
Yeah.
do I use my position, authority, knowledge, and skills to help clear the path for you to
Right.
feel comfortable
Right.
in
Right.
speaking up?
Right. Right.
And see, a lot of times we don't get that. They don't realize, well, your colleague John or Bob or Sarah or whoever was giving me the side eye, and I knew better not to say anything then.
Okay. I have to just repeat what you just said, Desiree. It was so good. Like, how do I clear the path for you? How do I clear the path for you? I feel like not just those words, but that commitment, right? That commitment.
Yes.
How do I look around and clear the path for others?
Yes. Because see, a lot of times
Gosh.
you are doing everything you can in your might.
Right,
You're the great leader because you're sitting there acknowledging it, following up, having a conversation,
right,
having the difficult conversations. It may not even be you.
right,
It may be your colleagues.
right,
And,
right,
but you don't know that.
right.
And you could be the obstacle, but your
Yeah,
colleagues could also be the obstacle.
right,
They haven't made the commitment to this as you have yet.
right, right.
You see?
Yeah,
So I see that a lot when I'm sitting in, senior level meetings and they're bringing in a junior person.
yeah,
They're like a wallflower. It
right,
is up to that
right,
leader
right.
to pull them off the wall, give them
Yeah,
permission,
yeah.
introduce them.
Okay.
You see
Okay.
that?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. And I feel like we've covered some really important things right here. So let's just, can I just recap for you?
Please, please,
I'm
yes.
gonna pull all this together.
Yeah.
Okay. So we said, first and foremost, like coaching, like to really have that DEI mindset, right? We need to really be authentic, courageous, sincere. All right. We need to look under the surface. If we can't feel authentic, courageous, or sincere, it's probably not a good time to have those hard conversations. Maybe some more soul searching we need to do. Right.
And a little bit of time.
And a little bit
Time
of
is our
time.
best friend, yeah, in this one,
Yeah.
but not
But,
too much.
yeah. But to think about how, I mean, I don't know. I look around, I think, okay, think about the people around you. Think about the human beings you are working with all day. Bring those people up, bring people along. This is kind of like the message to a leader that I want people to say, like, always be looking around for who you can elevate and who you can bring into the
Always,
conversation, right? Always.
always. Just real quick, this is important. I did some work with a city, it's one of the cities out here in Southern California, and we were trying to help them understand how important this is.
Yeah.
This is the thing. If you had a friend, relative, or a college friend that
Right.
worked with you
Yeah.
that reported to you,
Yeah.
what would you do?
Right. Yeah. You would want to pave the way for that person, right?
You
I
would
assume,
pave the
right?
way. You would tell them all of the, okay, make sure you do it this way. Make sure you don't
Right.
do this. Oh, that person over there, what I want you to do is be clear of that person because you know what? This is what gets underneath their skin.
Right.
You tell them all the little dirty secrets. You tell them all the things that they need to do right so
Yeah.
that they can get recognized. You
Yeah.
need to have that same mindset for every last one of your employees,
Right.
especially your
Right.
marginalized groups.
And to look for
You
those
see
very
that? Like you would
totally.
go out of your way.
Yeah.
You would go out of your way to ensure they are taken care of.
Yes. I love that. That is so tangible. I
Yeah.
love that, Desiree. I
Yeah.
love that. That is exactly how we should be thinking about bringing all of our people up, right?
Yeah.
All of our people,
Secrets, the thing, how did you make it? What did you do? What
right?
didn't you do? What did you, like but what happens is we don't share that. We keep it to ourselves.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta get past that for sure. Okay, so this is going to be a conversation where the leader, the coach, whatever, the manager comes in, authentic, caring, open,
Hmm.
and asks permission, paves that way, talks about that shared vision. Those are really important anchors, I think, as you're starting these conversations. You're watching the other person, you're asking if it's a good time. Your coachee, right, or is coming into that conversation as well with courage and a willingness to work toward a better
Right.
outcome, right?
Right. Right.
And so now we're in this conversation. How do we create and maintain trust and safety here, Desiree? I know you've got a
Yeah.
really good model that I'd love to have you
Yeah.
share
You want
about
me to
that.
share that right
Yeah,
now
yeah,
with
pull it up
you?
for a minute and we can just kind of go
Okay.
over it and then we can take it back down and but I think visuals are good. I think having
Yes,
right.
they are good. I'm gonna
Okay.
swap this. Can you see that?
I can see it.
Awesome. So this is a model that I love. And these are like just four simple acts to help you demonstrate you are an inclusive leader.
Okay.
So the first one is, selflessness. Like, because it's talking about what we've been talking about a little bit,
Yeah,
right? Like,
absolutely.
are you sharing information? Are you being aware,
Yeah.
that you even need to have this conversation in the first place?
Yep.
And are you following up?
Yeah.
Are you, and there's some questions that I always like to ask a
Yeah.
leader to ask themselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, are you pushing your
Yeah.
people forward, or are
Yeah.
you kind of holding them back
Yeah.
when it's uncomfortable, or ooh, if it's unpopular?
Oh, unpopular. Yeah.
You
Wow.
see
So
that?
like unpopular, like all the signs are pointing to, we haven't done this in the past, so we don't do this kind of thing. Is this what you mean? We don't, oh
Yes.
my gosh. I listened to this podcast the other day. Darn it, darn it, darn it. I can't remember which one it was. I listened to a lot of different
Right. I know. I do
podcasts.
too.
But the one I was listening to was talking about how it wasn't, it was a company where for team building events, they did a lot of really active, adventurous things. So
Mm.
what they didn't do, what they did do is they would go play paintball or
Oh
go,
yeah. Uh,
out on razors on the dunes and all these fun things. Like, I mean, kind of sounds like fun to me, but I can see that it wouldn't sound like fun to everybody, right?
right.
But what they
Right.
didn't do is they didn't balance it out by also doing other kinds of activities, like maybe a shared cooking class or this or that. Like every quarter, this company was doing stuff, but they were only doing certain things that actually weren't inclusive of all their members.
Or they could even not interest or can do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And they weren't having that conversation. So even something as simple as that, you have to be like, well, wait a minute, let's think about it. And actually in the podcast, darn it, I'm so upset I can't remember what it was right now, but even in the podcast, they recommended not trying to meet everybody's needs every single time, but cycling through different kinds of opportunities. Maybe one time they're going to go wine tasting. Maybe one time they're going to go to a commercial kitchen and have a cooking class. Maybe one time they're going to go, play paintball. Maybe one time they're going to go, but they're going to cycle through different options that to try to kind of like bring everybody's interests into the fold.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's I think, you know, oh gosh, I'm gonna say this, and I want to say, we're gonna get real here.
Okay.
Okay, for a minute,
Yeah.
because
I like that. I like
I'm gonna go a little deep here.
it.
I okay. You brought up something that really hit a core right now. I had an employer, a client rather, who was doing an offsite retreat, very similar to like what you're saying. Like
Yeah.
they have all these great intentions, right? And they think, oh, that would be fun. Oh, that would be interesting. Let's get us all together and do this team building activity, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
So this client actually did this, and they thought it would be okay to go to a plantation and have a team building activity.
Uh-huh.
You can imagine
Yeah.
um, the African American employees were not only horrified, but very upset,
Yeah.
very hurt, very angry.
Yeah.
It backfired everything they thought they were trying to do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And this was a true story. And I was like, and even one of the employees said to the leaders, what in God's name did you think that was going to be okay?
Yeah.
Like, why would you think that? And the thing is like you said, they're not thinking. They're
Right.
not being selflessness.
Right.
They're not thinking of others.
Yeah.
They're thinking this would be a unique experience.
Yeah.
This would be different. This
Yeah.
would be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not thinking. And
Right.
a lot of times that's what happens as leaders
Yeah.
is we don't stop ourselves. And
Yeah.
that's what I want leaders to do, is to stop themselves when they're planning these events
Yeah.
or when they're in meetings. I want you to stop, take a couple of quick breaths,
Yeah.
and remember your whole entire team,
Yeah.
and remember those marginalized groups, that how would they receive it? The
Yeah.
old WIFM, what's in it for me? The
Yeah.
WIIFM, we all have our own
Yeah.
radio station,
Yeah.
right? And we've got to tune in
Yeah.
to their radio station. And if they kind of look at it from their shoes, stand in their shoes, how would they feel?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
see
That
that?
makes perfect
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
So selflessness. So first of all, first and foremost, you're saying really try to look through the eyes of your different employees and talk.
Yes.
I'm assuming like ask, right? Be
That,
selfless. Get
yes,
very,
please.
get accustomed to kind of like switching perspectives as much as you can,
Yes.
and to try to say like, okay, how might this person feel? Go talk to them about it, open up that conversation. Well, maybe I'm stepping on the next one, but openness. But so first of all,
It's nice
selflessness.
transition. Nice
See it
transition
through,
there.
see it through the eyes of others. So then what happens? What's openness all about?
So this one is, I'm going to start off with something basic. Are you really listening?
Yeah, right.
Like, are you really listening to that's part of being open.
Yeah,
A lot of times people are like, well, I'm open and I'm going to invite you to do this, this, and this. No, let's start off with just listening.
yeah,
Are you open to listen to your team,
yeah,
like, and your employee? When you're in discussions with your employees, are you really, do you truly understand hmm,
yeah,
um, what they're saying?
yeah,
Are you just kind of listening and
yeah.
placating them?
Yeah. So it's actual, again, it's uh psychological openness. It's
Yeah,
openness to at a different level, right? It's not just openness to same old, same old. It's openness to perspectives that are truly different than your own. I mean,
yes,
I feel like it's so tragic how I look at kind of across so many sort of public conversations now, and how hard it is for people to sometimes even be in the same room with somebody who has a different opinion than them.
yeah, yeah,
And I think, wow, I mean, if we are in a place where we can't invite differences of opinions, then we are in a very, very scary place.
very scary
Because
place.
that's really what kind of all we've got, right? I mean, when it comes right down to it, we have to be able to be open to understanding
Yeah,
people's different experiences, their different ways of seeing the world. And I pain about that all the time.
yeah,
Like, we
yeah,
need to be there. We need to train ourselves and get back to a place where we can have interesting, open, civil conversations with people who see the world very differently than we do, or else we can't resolve our problems. We cannot do it if we are
exactly.
at odds all the time, right?
We really, really, and that's the thing. And you're right. I think we are in a situation where we're having, you know, experiences where people can't be in the room with one
Yeah,
another.
yeah,
And I think it's not only sad, but I think it's so detrimental to
yeah,
our effectiveness as a society.
yeah,
And then you get to the workplace and you talk about being a leader. You can imagine how ineffective this is.
right,
And we know that people leave bad managers. They do not leave organizations. We
right,
know that to be a fact.
right.
We understand that if you talk to people all the time, and I've had leaders tell me this when I was in HR and did employee relations. Well, no,
Yeah,
that employee left because I couldn't give her a promotion, and the new job she went to, she got a promotion, and so that's why she left,
right.
because that I didn't have a promotion. So then I asked the employee who's
Yeah,
leaving in the exit interview,
yeah.
did your leader ever have a career development conversation with you?
Never asked,
Never asked.
never
This
asked.
is this is the worst part. I say to the leader, did you ever have a career development conversation with your employee? And
Right.
they're like, what's that?
Yeah. or
I don't even
sometimes
know
I
what it
hear like,
is.
well, they know my door's always open. They can
Yeah.
talk to me about whatever they want, and it's like,
Yes.
no, you got to invite,
Gotta invite it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you even had a career development conversation, you might have been able to keep that high level employee because people that
Right.
are leaving, they are employable. They are
Yes.
people that other people want.
And who's
So
left? And then all your high performing, superstars go find other roles. You
they
don't
go
want
find
that.
other places because
Yeah.
they're employable. I used to be a recruiter when I was
Yeah.
in HR, and all I did was recruit all day long. And I could tell people that were leaving a bad manager, and I could also tell people that were running away from a problem that they created. And
Totally.
so, yeah, so
Totally.
you're right. So I think the thing is that leaders really need to listen to their employees, but they also need to make sure that they truly are understanding. And this is the last thing I want leaders to ask themselves, this question in openness is, you know, do your marginalized employees feel safe speaking up?
Yeah.
Do they
Right.
really feel
Right.
safe speaking up?
So, and when you say that, do they feel safe? Like, I mean, I think I think about that question a lot because I can't always predict whether someone is going to feel safe, but I can certainly do my part in trying to create the conditions for them to, right? So what are the conditions? It's inviting different perspectives.
Mhm.
It's not having a big reaction when something doesn't go the way I want, or when somebody speaks a perspective that I don't like, or I'm not familiar with, right?
It's not
So
shutting them down.
it's not shutting them down. It's not talking over them, right?
Yep.
So it's interest, it's engagement. How do we make people feel safe? We partner with them side by
Yes.
side, right?
Yes.
Side by
Yes.
side.
Yes. And we I love that you said we invite it. We
Yeah.
have to invite it. You have to not wait for it to just happen.
Yeah.
Like you
Right.
and you've got to set up opportunities for them to speak up.
Right.
Like that's the other thing is that I think a lot of times they're not given opportunities
Right.
in order which to speak up.
Right.
And so I think that's the other thing they need to do. And I
Yeah.
love that you talk about partnering. You've got to partner
Yeah.
with
Right.
your employee,
Right.
right? This
Yeah.
is a partnership. It's a two-way street.
Love it.
But and I, again, like we were saying, the manager has to be this inclusive leader,
Yeah.
invite, but the employee has to practice courage and consideration,
Sure.
when they're that balance, right? Of
Right.
taking the risk. Yeah.
We all have to go into that risk zone if we want things to get better. That's the scary part.
Right.
Good.
And because we're open, guess what? Then we can start to build trust.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us
Right?
about trust. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is where, you know, there are behaviors a leader can do that can build trust. But one of them is asking yourself, are you creating those obstacles and barriers, you know, for them? Where are you doing that? And are you the barrier or the
Right.
obstacle?
Right.
And one of the things that you want to do is, I always like to say, how do you build trust? You communicate,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
You listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are trustworthy.
Yes. Huge. Huge.
You are trustworthy. You
Absolutely.
have high integrity. You're honest.
Yeah.
You're dependable.
Yeah.
These are behaviors. There's a wonderful book by Stephen M.R. Covey called The Speed of Trust. And he
Yeah.
talks about 13 behaviors a leader can do to build trust.
Yeah. Yeah. Great
Right.
book.
And
I love
those are
that
just
book.
some of the behaviors. And
Yeah.
then the last one I love is be loyal to the absent.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What are we keep talking about what you're saying to the marginalized group. What are you saying behind their backs?
Oh, yeah. Right. That integrity of
Yeah.
really bringing your character into play here, right? Be that person, be that inclusive leader in the absence of anyone else in the room, right?
Yes. Are you doing the right thing when no one else is around, when no one else is seeing you or looking? And what choices are you making?
Yeah.
Because I can't tell you how many times information has gotten back to an employee about their manager.
Right.
And they think it's a safe zone where whoever they're
Right.
talking to
Oh,
and that it will never get back. I can't tell you how many times it has.
yeah. Yeah.
So
We
now
all
you
have
just
to
broke
be
it.
in integrity about this stuff. And I feel like
Yeah.
it's being careful with our speech. It's being careful with our words. And I feel like a lot of times a dear friend of mine does a lot of work about gossip and crushing gossip, right?
Ooh, yes.
And we've often said, she and I have worked together for a long time. Anyway, she says this thing about how gossip, a lot of people gossip because they think it's creating this glue, this bond between them and the person they're gossiping with.
Yeah, yes,
right?
yes,
But
yes.
it's creating all this damage as well, even in the mind often of the person they're gossiping with, because that person is then just going to think to themselves, well, what is that person saying about me when I'm gone?
What are they saying about me when I'm gone?
Yeah. So it's the integrity. It's making sure that you're true and authentic and consistent, right? You want to be consistent.
Yeah.
And I loved what you said too, because I really believe this. I teach a lot about trust. And the first thing I always teach is every time you think there's a trust problem, you go back and you check your own trustworthiness, right? Because when I think there's a trust problem, I often get triggered and then I overreact to something and then I create a place that's unsafe. Like my big reaction creates low safety. And then it gets even harder to repair. So the deeper we dig ourselves into that, the harder it's going to be to repair and to find that good future that we're looking for, right?
Yeah, yes. That trustworthiness is huge.
It's huge.
And that's why I said, are you being trustworthy?
Yeah, totally.
Because that right there, that'll just take care of a lot of different areas, right?
And it's crazy too how so many people go like, oh, they broke the trust, or they're not trustworthy, or they did this and they did that. I go, every single time you hear yourself say that, you need to turn that mirror back and be like, what did I do?
Turn it around.
And, what happened if they're not being trustworthy, how am I not being trustworthy? Like, don't worry about that. Worry about this. Worry about, are you open? Are you being selfless? Are you understanding their perspective? Right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's hard stuff.
That's hard. It's hard work, but it's important work.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, there's a great movie, The Best of Enemies. Did you ever see that movie?
I haven't seen that.
It's with Taraji P. Henson and I can't think of the other guy's name. Oh, what was his name?
The Best of Enemies. Okay.
Sam Rockwell. That's who it is.
Okay.
And what this is all about is a KKK, a Ku Klux Klan leader, and an African American leader in the South, how they were at odds. She was a political figure in the South, running for trying to get change in the South. He was a KKK leader. And I tell you, the movie is riveting of how these two, these are the best of enemies. That's why it's called that.
Yeah.
Really end up forming a partnership.
Wow.
But it was about like how you could it reminded me of it because of what you said. How can we be in the same room and people that have differences and we can't even have a decent conversation?
Right.
And these two, as you can imagine, when it started off at odds at all ends, they were at each other's throats.
Yeah.
And no trust, no openness.
Yeah.
None of this was on the table. And how they ended up forging an amazing, not only partnership,
I would see that. I gotta check
that out. You gotta watch it.
I will.
The best. It's on Netflix. You can look it on there. But it was an amazing movie, and that's what we need to do. Even when we have differences like that, we're not here to tell you how you, should think, act, and feel. Because that's the other thing. People always ask me as a leader, you can't tell me how to feel. This is my belief. This is what I believe. This is blah, blah, blah. I'm not telling you like what to believe. You can believe what you want to, but when you are at work as a leader, in order to be an effective leader, I'm telling you what you need to do.
Yeah. Well, also, I think that's the thing. I mean, we argue for our beliefs without ever looking at whether or not they're creating the outcomes that we want. Our beliefs have
Right.
consequences. So we have to
Right.
think, I mean, and again, it'd be hard pressed to tell somebody that their beliefs were not up to par or this or that.
Right.
But I mean, I
No.
really feel like
No.
we need to be conscientious of what our beliefs are creating
Yes.
in the world and in our
Yes.
relationships and in our leadership and in our organizations. And I think
Yes.
that's important.
Yeah.
So tell us about validation.
Validation. Oh, I love this one. So this one is all about like, you got to ask yourself, what extent are you as a leader, really helping marginalized people voices be
Mm,
validated? Like their
mm,
voices, is it, are they validated? Are
yeah,
they making are you making good decisions in when you hear their voices? Are you being inclusive when you hear
yeah,
their voices,
right,
when you're making those decisions?
right,
You know, are people only clustered at certain levels in your organization,
right,
at the lower levels?
yeah,
Are they validated? When people feel validated, they see a representation throughout the organization at a variety of levels,
right,
not just at certain levels, right?
right,
Lower levels or mid levels.
right,
And so, how are you validating,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah, I
Them.
think that's really, really, really important. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, Desiree, as you're talking about these four areas, I feel like this is the foundation for every good coaching conversation, period.
Mhm.
This is and I think I just want to kind of, I don't know, like turn up the volume on it when it comes to having these sensitive conversations
Yeah.
where we really
Yeah.
know that people have to step into higher and higher degrees of vulnerability and risk. This
Yeah.
feels hard, it feels difficult. And so we want to make sure, as you're the coach, you're the leader, you're the boss, whatever, be selfless, understand the perspectives and the viewpoints of
Yeah.
everyone in your
Yeah.
circle and on your team. And you've got it. I mean, that is so key for coaching, right? I mean, that is absolutely it. We have to understand the other person, not just through and I know it's very hard to do, but we have to get out of just our own perspective and come around to the other side of the table and see through the eyes of that person as much as possible, right? Asking those questions, asking for that experience, validating that experience, being profoundly open to what they bring to the table, what they have to say, how they feel, etc. And then really being trustworthy by staying calm and being, holding that space for those important conversations.
And
It's,
don't you think it's interesting? I think you're absolutely right, because don't you think it's interesting that all four of these, acts are acts that one should do when coaching,
totally,
period.
absolutely,
And then you
period.
add in the inclusivity of it
Right,
all and the
right,
diversity of it all. And it just takes your level
right,
as a coach to the next level. It
yeah,
pushes that bar up.
right,
And
right,
that's why I love these four simple acts, because these are things that you should be doing anyway. But
right,
I want you to have a DE, and I want you to have a diversity, inclusion, and equity mindset
yeah,
when you're
yeah,
doing these four
right,
acts. That's what's going to help you stand apart. One last thing, and I know we're wrapping up, but one last thing is, when I worked in large organizations like, like Nestle and American Red Cross, and Nestle had 50,000 employees and stuff, and I worked in HR, and people would come to me, and leaders would come, and how do I get fast tracked? Like, so and so got fast tracked, and how come they're getting fast tracked and I'm not?
yeah,
You
right,
know,
right,
you need to, and I would tell them all the time, you've got to become a developer of people,
right. And Desiree,
of
could you take
all
the slide
people.
down just for a minute? Do you mind
Take
taking
it
the slide?
down. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Here, let me.
Okay,
Yeah.
tell me again. So you got to become a developer of
You
people.
want to
Say more
become a
about that.
developer of people,
Yeah,
and you want to, because guess what? I can't fast track you if I have nobody
yeah.
waiting in the wings to come up,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
right?
right,
And the thing is that you need to set yourself apart from all the other leaders
yeah,
in the organization. I've got all these thousands and thousands of leaders. You want to know why we fast track certain people? Because they set themselves apart.
Right.
A leader that has a DE&I mindset
Yeah.
is going to set themselves apart.
Right. Right. Totally. Yeah. Because you're going to bring your whole team up. You're going to bring your whole team up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's funny. This is sitting right next to me, this book, Unleashed. I've been
Oh,
reading this book,
yes.
Unleashed. You know this book?
Yes.
Love that
Yes.
book.
Love that book.
But it says exactly, there's a model in here. It just shows very little simple. It's a little graph and it shows this upward line, right? And it just says like, this is what your team should be doing in relationship to you. When you came on board, the team should be going up, right? That the leadership, that the measure of leadership truly is how well all the other people are doing.
Yes. Yes.
That's the measure.
Exactly. That's the measure. That's it.
Yeah.
Not your favorite few,
Yeah.
not the ones that think and act like you and look like you, not the, you know what I mean? Your whole entire team. And
Bringing
when
that
you
team
can do
together
that,
and forward. Yeah.
that's going to set you apart. That's when we're looking for those that we want to fast track those. Why? Because they're going to take that same mindset.
Yeah.
With a bigger team, a larger team, a wider span, a wider region. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
I'm not going to put somebody who's stuck,
right?
Who's only thinking one way, who's only thinking their way.
I think this is that is so inspiring to me, Desiree. Like if we could, I can only hope that we can influence people in our spheres of influence, right?
Right.
To really be thinking about leadership at that different level.
Yes.
Of what kind of world we can create when people really do come to their leadership role. And these are not just formal roles, by the way. This is not just when somebody's granted you a title of manager or supervisor or director or something like that. It's
right.
Stepping into this place of bringing the whole up, right? Of helping us all experience more connectedness, more opportunity, more chance to connect with others and live in our genius, and to really have a voice and bring ourselves forward. Yeah, I love that. Ooh,
right?
Chills. I love it.
Right. I know. And that's what
it
is. It's like there's not an outlier anywhere.
Right.
There's no outliers there should not be any outliers on your team.
Right.
Everybody's in. And you don't want somebody feeling as though they're not validated.
Right.
And you don't want someone feeling that they're not part of the team.
Right.
And that's where we get into trouble.
Yeah. And I think this really speaks to the sense of like diversity. It, ultimately is about bringing diverse perspectives, ways of thinking, life experiences, all that stuff into things like our decision making and how we move forward. And like, it's getting all that perspective. It kind of comes back to what we were saying before. Like if you're uncomfortable with people with perspectives that are different than yours, you're going to have very limited effectiveness.
Right.
Right. We're going to miss a lot. We're going to miss a lot.
We're going to miss a lot. There you go. Think about it that way. Think how much you're going to miss.
Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah. You don't want to miss that as a leader. That's going to be detrimental to you, the organization, and to your employees, everybody.
Absolutely.
So that's awesome. Yes.
Oh, well, thank you, Desiree. I think we've covered a lot of really important ground here today. Let me just look at our question list real quick.
Okay, sure.
Okay. I think we definitely captured this first one. The first question is about, I want to better understand how DEI shows up in practice in day-to-day interactions with the people I supervise. And I think we've done a great job of addressing that question, right?
Yes, I agree.
It's how you show up. It's how you invite. It's how you make sure everybody's included, all of that stuff. Love it. Okay, here's another one. All right, we've got a couple of questions that I think are a little bit outside our scope today, but this one says, I'd like to learn how I can use my voice to influence a DEI-centered recruitment plan. And I think we want to stay away from kind of the recruitment side of things today, because that's another entire
That's
topic.
a whole nother workshop, is it?
We can
Right?
definitely have a workshop on that.
Right, but you know, that's my wheelhouse since I used to be a recruiter. So I've got lots of
Excellent.
ideas around that.
Excellent.
There's
Excellent.
a way
So
to
that's
do
right,
it.
it's your gal.
Yes, there's a
Gotta
way to
connect
do
with
it.
you. Yes, perfect. Yeah, and I think too, though, that if we think about, okay, it just says, how can I use my voice to influence a DEI centered recruitment plan? I would say the simplest answer, kind of coming out of what we've talked about, is be courageous and go step into that conversation, right?
And ask
Yeah,
for a diverse pool.
yeah, right.
I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah,
You need to you want to use your voice, you need to request for a diverse pool.
good. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. And contact you for more.
Yes.
Okay. And then this is about how you measure your success in your DEI journey as an organization and with external partners. I mean, I think you can measure, well, clearly you can measure things like who's in what role and how many, do you have a diverse pool that you're, hiring from, and from that diverse pool, are you hiring a diverse mix, and all those kinds of measures, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm gonna go back to it sounds a little cliche, but I want you to start asking your team.
Yeah.
I want
Right.
you to get their feedback.
Yeah.
Get feedback from your team
Yeah.
on how you're doing on your journey.
Right.
Remember, we started off by saying this morning that we started saying that, be vulnerable, let them know that you're on this journey and
Yeah.
that you may make mistakes.
Yeah.
So because you asked for it, you need to ask for feedback and have check-ins along the way.
Yes.
To see, yes,
conversations that aren't, 5 minutes while I'm running from one thing to the next, right? But real present conversations.
Yeah.
I think that's so true. And
go to lunch or grab coffee or something, so
Yeah.
you're not rushed.
Yeah.
Go to lunch, grab coffee, and say, I want to just check in and see and get some feedback. How am I doing? There's a couple of things I've been wanting to work on. I've been really working on ABC. From your perspective, how do you think I'm doing?
Yeah. I love
Give
that.
me, and ask for that. So
Yeah.
I would say that's number one, to check in
Yeah.
with your team. They are your best indicator
Right.
of your performance.
Absolutely.
Your employees are your best indicator of your performance, if you're doing well or if you're not.
Yes.
Not you and
Yes.
not your boss necessarily,
Right.
but your employees.
Yes. Love it. Well, what a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Desiree. I
You're
appreciate you and your time and your expertise so much.
Always.
Yeah,
It's
so
always been a joy. I love having these conversations.
I know, me too. Me too. Well, thank you so much. And we will make sure that your contact information is posted with this video, and we'll share your wisdom as broadly as we can. So
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Desiree.
Thank
All right.
you.
Take good care.
Bye-bye.